Day one of the Kirby Carpenter trial brought opening statements, hours of testimony from the lead investigator, and for the first time, I'm sharing parts of the 911 call and never before seen photos. Happy late Thursday evening, early Friday morning, my friends. For those of you who have followed me for any amount of time, you know that I have been following the Kirby Carpenter murder case since day one. I actually broke the case on social media, and yesterday was the first day of the full trial. And I spent hours, literally hours, watching the entire trial online tonight. And I want to bring you all of the highlights from that. I'm going to try to do that all in one video. I can't guarantee that I can do that. And I'm going to focus on really what the opening statements were from both the prosecution and the defense, as well as the lead investigator, Chris McAllister. He spoke for hours on the stand. And for the first time, like I said, I will be bringing you a part of the 911 call, as well as never before seen photos and information about this case. I have to tell you, some of it can be triggering. So I am going to say trigger warning for parts of this. Now, there is so much to absorb with this case, and both the prosecution and the defense, like I said, started out with their opening statements, and I think the prosecution started out so strong. Short opening statement, but basically saying that the evidence that they have is going to prove without a doubt that Jeff Spence is the one who pulled the trigger on that cold November night back in 2022 and murdered Kirby Carpenter. Now, his defense attorney says, that's not the case, that there is actually zero proof that Jeff Spence was back in Virginia, and they have proof of that. And there is no way that he could have been in Mississippi in November of 2022, November 30th of 2022, and killed Kirby. In fact, that Kirby had a ton of enemies against him who wanted him dead. And that Kirby, I'm trying to be as fair as possible, even knowing my history with the family. So I want to tell you both sides of the story. His defense is saying that Kirby was in fact a rug dealer. That he was with a gang out of Memphis, that he lived this, quote, dangerous lifestyle. He came and went as he pleased, and he had a lot of people who were out to get him. Now, the prosecution brought it hard today with a ton of evidence against Jeff Spence, and one of the things that I found was so powerful was the fact that Jeff Spence opened a lockbox in Virginia on December 2nd, 2022. Now, if you remember, that was the date that Kirby's body was found. The lockbox was opened at 12 o'clock. Kirby's body was found around 12:30, meaning that he opened the lockbox about a half an hour before Kirby's body was found. Now, when police finally got a search warrant for this lockbox, along with many other lockboxes, storage sheds, a ton of other things, homes in Virginia, they found two very strong pieces of evidence in that lockbox, including a check from Kirby to one of his employees and friends, David Barnes, made out for $90 that had no value to them at all, but it proved that it was from Kirby's home, as well as bank receipts from the People's Bank, which is a bank that is only in Ripley, Mississippi. Okay. And there was also a receipt from a $5,000 withdrawal on July 22nd, 2022 from that same bank, along with bank bands stamped and like the sleeves that you put money in from that same bank. Again, this bank is only in Ripley, Mississippi. So why would they be at this lockbox in Virginia? In addition, they played part of the 911 call that I'm going to play for you, and then I'm going to tell you what the investigator said after this call. So after that is part of the 911 call, what you can mainly hear is the 911 operator not being able to understand one word that Caitlin is saying, ma'am, and it's very hard to understand. But what the investigator said after that on the stand today was one of the things he noticed was that Caitlin did not start crying until after the 911 operator picked up, which he thought was very interesting. Now, I'm going to show you a couple of pictures that could be very much a trigger warning, so I want to warn you guys, these pictures have never been seen before, but the prosecution made some really good points with them, and I feel it's important for you guys to see them. So first and foremost, this is Kirby's house. This is his car, or his truck, his white truck, that Caitlin had to walk by every day. Now, mind you, she did not report him missing for 3 days. Look at where his truck was. Now, y'all can see the front of his truck. And these are Kirby's legs. And you can see the close proximity. And see, those are the toolboxes that we talked about that were stacked on top. Now, it's really hard to tell here, but if you look very closely, you can see drag marks. And the investigator said that he feels very strongly that, and there was actually a video shown, that Kirby was actually dragged from the garage to his resting place. Now, I want to give you guys a trigger warning. The next few photos I'm going to show you are going to be disturbing. So if you do not want to see them, they are going to show a deceased body, obviously covered up, but fast forward the next minute. Now, police thought that this was very important for a couple of reasons. One, because you can see exactly what he was covered up with. He was actually covered up with a curtain, not a tarp. And they thought that was really interesting. And also they thought it was interesting that his boots were not covered. In addition, he had very little blood on him, and that's because he had so much clothing on. A very thick winter jacket, a shirt underneath that, jeans, and then his boots. But also he was found several days later. Y'all, this shows the drag marks that the police were talking about, how he was dragged across his resting place from the garage. Oh, he had $2,600 in cash on him. So prosecutors say, listen, if this was a robbery, no. He literally this money would have been gone. And again, the next picture I'm going to show is probably the most disturbing. And y'all, this is Kirby's body, how it was found exactly, underneath that curtain with a toolbox on top of it and the other toolboxes stacked next to it. So the prosecution says, well, they asked investigator McAllister, what did that represent to you? The fact, I'm never going to get this done in one video, you guys. I'm sorry. There's so much more to get into it. So I will have to do part 2. And I'll have another video to show you in that one. So because I do think it's fair that I tell you a little bit more of what the defense said as well. It's only fair. So the prosecution said to investigator McAllister, and also there's more to tell you about what the estate, there's so much to this, what happened today. I knew I wouldn't be able to get it done in one video. The prosecution said to McAllister, what does that tell you about how he was found covered up from head to toe and with this money on him? And he said, it tells us that they were either trying to hide him or they did not want to see him. Like they would walk by him and they just didn't want to see him. So it was clearly someone that he knew. Okay, I'm going to end it here. You guys come back for part 2. Well, first of all, let me know what your thoughts are on this one. I have so many people who have been following me since day one. The other thing I wanted to say is, did you all see Jeff Spence's face during that 911 call? That was the only time he showed any emotion at all. And I think that was a big fake. But I have a great bit of information in the next video coming up from Chris McAllister. Wait till you hear this soundbite that I chose, and a lot more coming up in part 2. But listen, comment, share, like, let me know what you think about this one. Part 2 coming up.